Storytime about how my carefree friend got rich by listening to the universe. I have a friend named Paige who's a free spirit. She believes in going with the flow, not stressing and letting the universe decide what happens next. I've always been more of a planner and kind of a workaholic. Paige always said that I work too hard and need to relax. She'd say I stress about things too much and the universe already has a plan for me, so I should let it run its course, but I never listened. I've had 2 jobs and I've been in school full-time for as long as I can remember. I always believe that if you want something, you have to work hard for it and make it happen. I never believed in just sitting back and waiting for things to happen for me or leaving it up to the universe, as she'd often preach. However, maybe I should have slowed down and taken her advice. Over a few years, Paige and I drifted apart. She messaged me one day telling me that she was coming back to town and she'd like to visit me while she's here. I was absolutely shocked when she pulled up in a brand new Tesla. Paige never really cared about money and didn't really work besides selling her natural healing oils, which paid okay but nothing crazy. I hopped in and noticed she also had an expensive designer bag, eco-friendly of course, and expensive jewelry on. When I asked her where she got all this from, she told me that the universe got it for her, which is something that I'd expect her to say, but it didn't make any sense. What she was about to tell me changed my outlook on things and made me think that Paige's ideas and beliefs weren't so far-fetched after all. Part 2 about how half my coworkers got fired after management found our hidden break room. With word traveling fast about the crazy things going on in the secret break room, I knew it was also a matter of time before management heard about the rumors being spread. I decided to stop taking my breaks in there with the others because I had a feeling that we were about to get raided. For a few weeks, it was fine, and I kept hearing more and more stories about what was going on in the hidden room, especially during the overnight shifts. It was being used as a spot to hang out, drink on the job with friends, sleep during your break, and apparently sleep with others while at work as well. As I predicted, management heard about the craziness and decided to pop in at peak hidden break room hours one day, which led to a lot of people getting fired. Apparently, they went in and found coworkers doing party drugs and of course fired them on the spot. This led to a drug test for everyone on shift, which some of my coworkers failed. I guess word didn't get to the overnight shift, or they just didn't care, because management popped in again at the dead of night and found another guy sound asleep in there, complete with a pillow and blanket from the store. All the firings led to us being super short staffed right in time for peak season. OGs that are still working at the store years later tell the tale about the secret break room to all the newbies to this day. Most of them think it's just an old wives' tale, but the old timers like me know it's a fact and a classic store legend. Storytime about how half of my coworkers got fired after management found our hidden break room. I used to work for a department store a few years back. One day one of my coworkers pointed out a door in the back room, hidden off in the corner, and asked if anyone knows what's back there. Feeling adventurous, we asked the shift lead we were cool with to come with us and unlock it. It led to what appeared to be an electrical room, and behind that there was another door that led to a huge storage area that no one knew about. The storage room had old dusty promotional displays from 10 years ago and other random items that looked ancient, leading us to believe that no one had been back there in quite some time. The 3 of us started sneaking off and taking our breaks in the storage room, slowly inviting coworkers we trusted to come hang out. We ended up making it our secret break room that only some of us knew about. However, the secret didn't last long. Rumors of a secret hangout spot started traveling around the back room pretty quickly. Slowly but surely, more and more of our coworkers started frequenting our secret hangout spot. One night, a few of the guys snuck in a bottle of alcohol, and it turned into a 10-minute break of passing the bottle around while the song Shots played on someone's iPhone. There were also rumors about the overnight shift finding the secret break room and sneaking in to do the nasty. I knew management would find out soon, and sure enough, they did. What they found back there was enough to fire half of my coworkers. Part 2, why best friends can be abusive too. By some miracle, I kicked Craig off at me and ran for my life. He had double locked the front door, hid in my bag, and smashed my iPhone. I was running down the stairs with him yelling right behind me that he was going to kill me. I knew the back door was open from him having a smoke earlier. I ran for it and made it to the street. I was barefoot, in shorts, and a pajama top. I ran for what felt like ever towards the town. 30 minutes later, I used a payphone and called the police. They picked me up and I told them the story. They took me to the station and took photos of my neck that had bruising along with my head that was bleeding from when he smashed me into the kitchen wall earlier. I sat in the patrol car as they went inside of my house to pick him up. They found him in the streets looking for me. They arrested him and put him in a cell overnight while dropping me off to gather my things. I was terrified he'd be released and come back at any moment, so I grabbed just a few of my things in a rush. I didn't have my phone or any money. I drove to a patrol station bleeding from my head with no shoes and bruised up. I broke down using their phone to call my mom. She was annoyed that I had woken her up at first, but once I explained what happened, she sent me $200 to fill up my tank and get something to drink to calm down. Then I drove to my parents' house. Craig got out in the morning and it was his word against mine. I blocked him on everything and changed my number, cutting off all contact. I sometimes still get flashbacks of that night. This is why best friends can be abusive too. I had moved to England with my ex around 3 to 4 years ago. We had broken up but remained good friends and just rented a house together. We weren't hostile and learned that we were better as friends than in a relationship. I started going out to local bars and shops to make friends because I didn't know anyone there. This is when I met a guy named Craig who quickly became my best friend. He was a little odd, had family in the area and his own flat. Shortly after meeting Craig, my ex moved back in with his family and I couldn't afford to make rent on my own. This is when Craig and I decided to rent a house together. We weren't romantically or sexually involved, we were strictly just friends. He was the type of guy who always had a few girls in tow, so he'd never be without a love interest. I started seeing a guy named Jay who would stay over a few times throughout the week, eventually becoming my boyfriend. Craig quickly made it known that he hated it. We would argue about him and I made it known to him that we were only friends, so he needed to stay out of my dating life. One night, Craig pounced on me in my room, getting on top. He put his knees on my arms and started to strangle me. He was saying things like, "Where is he now?" And I honestly thought I was about to die. As I felt his grip tighten, I thought of my mom who was only 4 to 5 hours away. I thought of how she'd never know what happened to me or how she'd have to identify the body of her only child. Part 2 of not wanting to help my ex after he left our business. I found out through friends that both of his parents had passed away during those 5 years that we didn't have contact. After receiving the message from him stating that his parents cut him out of the will and he was struggling to feed his son, I looked into it. I was able to verify that he does indeed have a son, but he wasn't cut out of his parents' will. The money simply just wasn't as much as he was expecting. Even though he did lose his job, he had a lot of money to fall back on. I had done an interview in a local newspaper about my business, and I'm guessing my ex may have read it. This is probably how he found out my business was doing so well. Since he didn't need that money, my only explanation for why he reached out to me is that he felt entitled to my success and the money I made. My best friend admitted to me that he reached out to her before he emailed me. After some coaxing, she told me that they had been casually speaking for years. I'm not the most confrontational person, so I just cut her out of my life. I found out yesterday through Facebook that they're engaged. Now I see she was just trying to get me to give my money to her future fiancé. I met my ex in college and we started a business right after our senior year. Eventually, our business started having financial troubles. He came from wealth, so I asked him to get a loan from his parents and he agreed. 2 months later, he asked for all the money back. We were always planning to pay it, but mutually decided on manageable installments. He said he needed it because his father was sick, but he wouldn't give details or let me call his mother. The money was already invested in our business. I had to take some out and give away all my personal savings. 3 weeks after this, he called me and ended things. He also wanted out of the business. The only time I saw him was with lawyers when we divided our business assets and he withdrew his name from all the documents. I was devastated, emotionally traumatized, and had no finances to fall back on. I moved back in with my mother and later found out that his father was never sick. 5 years later, I never gave up on my business and it paid off. Now I live a comfortable life. In the midst of lockdown, I got a message from my ex saying that his parents cut him out of their will. He had a child with a woman who left him and he was now struggling to feed his son. He said since he was instrumental to the business foundation, he deserved a cut from it now that it was successful. My lawyer said he has no legal claims to the business. However, my best friend thinks I'm being selfish because he was responsible for the business idea and his initial investment was twice as much as mine. Am I wrong for not wanting to help him out? Part 2 of not letting my sister see her kids. I gave my oldest 2 weeks to really think about whether he wanted to see my sister or not. I figured that his original decision might have been made out of anger, so I wanted to give him time to make such an important decision. Ultimately, he decided that he did actually want to talk to her. I was a bit surprised, but we set up a Zoom call between them with me supervising. Right before the call, he admitted to me that he wanted to talk to her just to see if she'd say sorry. She didn't. Instead, she opened the call with, "Hello, it's been so long. I guess you're ready to come home with me now?" That's when she noticed I was sitting there with him. She immediately launched into accusations of alienation, followed by saying if I don't give the kids back, then she'd call the police and say I kidnapped them. My oldest was disgusted and asked her if she was going to apologize to him. She had the audacity to ask what for. At that point, he shut off the Zoom call. I asked him if he was okay, but he spent the rest of the afternoon in his room by himself. That night, he told me that he never wanted to talk to her again. I told him he didn't have to talk to her again if he didn't want to, and we'd never give him back over to her. Before now, I honestly never considered myself as their parent, even after legally adopting them. Now I realize those kids are my kids and they're going to be for the rest of my life. I obtained custody of my sister's 3 kids back in 2018 after she left them alone for 2 weeks to go on a drug bender. It was a huge transition for the kiddos because not only did they have to switch schools and daycares, but they also wouldn't be able to see their mother anymore. I've adopted the kids and have full custody of them. They're doing better now and leading happier lives. Recently though, my sister was released from prison and wants to see them. She called me begging to have a visit with them and telling me that I could give them back now because she was out of prison. I've had a talk with the 9-year-old and he says he doesn't want to see his mom yet. He told me that he still hates her for leaving him alone. The girls have no memories of her. The smallest was only 3 months old the last time she saw her. I feel like I could have helped them foster a better relationship with their mom, but I don't want to force them to meet her if they don't want to. My close family has told me that the oldest doesn't know what he's talking about, and it's my fault the little ones don't remember their mother because I didn't take them to see her when she was in prison. They also told me that it's my responsibility to force them to meet her even when they don't want to because it's what's best for them and they shouldn't grow up without their mother. I've spoken to a professional about this and they said it should be up to the kids. Am I being a jerk to my sister by not letting her kids see her if they don't want to? Part 3 of why you might not want to use Facebook to find a roommate. A week after she started screaming in the backyard, my sister and I decided that we needed to get her out. We had a house meeting and told Tammy that she has a month to move out. At first, she was crying and upset, acting like she didn't know what she did wrong, but then she accepted it. However, the last month with her was the worst month of my life. I was concluding the semester at nursing school and it was about to be finals. She started eating me and my sister's packed lunches out of our lunch boxes. She also started breaking dishes on purpose, leaving the glass where our corgi and labradoodle would play. When I confronted her about it, she blew it off saying that it was an accident and hadn't gone around to cleaning it. One night, she sat me and my sister down, threatening to sue us because we were trying to get rid of her during COVID. My sister wasn't having it and told her to get her lawyer. I installed 7 cameras in the house because I couldn't trust her while we weren't there and I was worried for our dogs. She would put her cigarette butts and ashes in our dog's food bowl, so I knew I needed to watch her. Whenever I checked the cameras, she was always up to something like eating our food, looking through our things, and going into our bedrooms when we weren't around. The craziest part of all of this is when she finally moved out and we saw her room. It was a complete mess. There was menstrual blood all over the carpet, scratches on the wall, and she left a painting that she had done of our house burning while she walked away. Part 2 why you might not want to use Facebook to find a roommate. My sister talked to Tammy and she apologized, saying she was just sleeping. About 2 weeks later, my sister stayed at her boyfriend's house and I was stuck with Tammy. I made myself dinner and I was eating, and that's when Tammy came downstairs. She was blasted drunk again and went to the stove. She started reheating my food, and that's when I asked her if she wanted some, but she said she was just stirring my food for me. After I ate my dinner, I went to look and she had taken all of it. Over time, I noticed she would eat our food without permission even when I asked her not to. When I'd call her out on it, she would lie and say she didn't touch my food. We used to keep our liquor in the kitchen, but she started drinking from the bottles and we had to move them to our rooms. She would go into my room because I had a bottle of liquor and she drank it, then fill it up with water. However, it was easy to tell because it was whiskey. One night I was studying for one of my exams and I hear loud screaming. I assumed it was coming from her room, but when I opened my door, I realized it was coming from outside. I went downstairs and saw her laying on the floor of the backyard, screaming her head off. I told her that she was being loud and the neighbors would call the cops. She got up and apologized and then went to her room. However, she repeated this again a couple days later. Just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, it did. This is why you might not want to use Facebook to find a roommate. My sister and I work in the medical field and we're renting a house together. The rent was pretty high and we quickly decided that it would be helpful if we got a roommate. However, after weeks of looking, we still couldn't find anyone. My sister and I were desperate and posted in the Facebook groups about needing a roommate. This woman in her late 30s named Tammy answered and we were excited that we had found our new roommate. When we met her and talked to her, everything seemed normal. She seemed nice and put together. My sister's in residency and I'm in nursing school, so we made it clear that we needed a respectful roommate who understood our schedules. When she first moved in, everything seemed to be going well. After the first week, I had a friend